So now there are only 2 communities in the Northeast Conference representing 3 schools that are unable to participate. So at that time, the Department of Education also put out, if you are a community that is going back to school fully remote, your school committee needs to vote on whether or not your students can participate in athletics if they're not reporting to school. So again, we reiterated that Peabody is going back in a hybrid model. Our high school kids are going back to school. If there is athletics, we would endorse participating. And because we're in a hybrid model, the school committee wouldn't need to participate. We are able to participate if there are athletics. And so in the past couple days, we've seen 2 communities around us, Masconomet and Marblehead, who are starting fully remote, vote to participate in athletics. And so that's where we are here today. The Northeast Conference has not come out with a final decision. There is some desire to start the fall season, fall 1, in, I think it was October 2nd was the date that they were looking at. And so we've maintained, if there are athletics, that Peabody would participate because we'll be back in school. One thing that is a little wrinkle that I would like the committee to discuss potentially tonight, kind of tease it out and then maybe bring it to the full committee next week, is whether or not students who are fully remote would be able to participate in sports. And so, I think we can have a discussion about that. And think about what that goes. I think one of the things that was brought up after the initial discussion that is worthy of talking about is, number one, would it be an equity issue if some schools couldn't play? And that really was what started the conversation. Subsequently after that, people have discussed, well, there won't be any golf courses open in February. So golf, if it doesn't play in the fall, likely won't be able to play at all. There are a number of cross-country meets in terms of regional and national qualifications, that if the kids don't participate in the fall 1 season, that they would not be able to participate in the national or the regional competitions. So that wasn't part of the initial discussions, which have sort of been brought up lately, and that has informed more communities that are now looking to participate in fall athletics. So that's kind of a big picture view of how we got here. And the Northeast Conference, and we can defer to Mr. Boo as well. I don't believe the Northeast Conference has made a final decision on what it will do for league play in the fall, but we've reiterated that if there is a fall season, that we would be in support of Peabody playing in the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. I'd like to explore a few things with you and Mr. Bua, and then open the conversation up to committee members. Amico Carpenter and Mayor Betancourt is joined us tonight as well, and allow everyone an opportunity to ask questions or to speak.
Mr. Hockman, could I just ask one quick question before we go? It's very quick. Volleyball. Is volleyball?
Yes, volleyball is a fall sport.
So, I'm sorry, because you didn't mention volleyball.
Yeah, I didn't mention volleyball.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to so
volleyball would also be a fall sport.
So we're talking golf, boys and girls cross country, boys and girls soccer, field hockey, and volleyball.
Yeah, and more schools are pulling away from volleyball in the fall 1 because of it's an indoor sport, and a lot of communities are, if our buildings aren't open, they're not open, and that is happening. I can't tell you which ones, but there's more and more talk of that happening.
Sorry, Mr. Hockman, thank you.
No, Mayor Betancourt, thank you. And football and cheer are the other two, and I think that there are in some. I don't know if it's the MIAA hierarchy, there's levels 1, 2, and 3, and believe it or not, volleyball falls into level 1, I believe, with golf and cross country, although I understand the concerns that Mr. Brewer has raised. So, Mr. Brewer, just, we have about 45 minutes to go in this meeting. I'd like to use it, probably gonna need all of it, so in terms of so if we assume that Peabody will participate in fall sports, whether or not the NEC endorses that, but we have enough teams within our conference, enough districts within our conference who are willing to participate. What does that look like in terms of an athletic director putting together schedules and making, do we have enough time to put transportation together? Do we have enough time to put schedules together to have a realistic beginning at some point in October?
Schedules, yes, in a sense, schedules, transportation is always tough.
just in the sense of even when we're kind of full and everybody's kind of going, trying to get afternoon buses is always kind of an issue, especially if you have more than 2 or 3 games going on a given day. You know, and I foresee if we have, you know, games and we have away games, having limited buses and trying to get teams to events would be tough, you know, especially, you know, 1 kid per seat.
Right.
You're talking a 50-seater, 20, you know, that's 25 kids, that's 1 team, that's your varsity soccer team, you know, and that's what happens with your JV team, you know, trying to find a second bus, and if you have 3 teams that are going out, trying to find 4 or 5 buses to get teams out would be a challenge. You know, as putting together schedules, if there's teams to play, we can sit down and you know, as athletic directors, we can create a schedule, you know, in a short amount of time.
Okay, I do foresee transportation being an issue and something that, you know, with the limitations that we as DESI has put out there and we as a district have endorsed and adopted, so that may be an issue to maybe get ahead of, if that's something that you can look at in this week, you know, perhaps. We will need, for some events, more buses than you're accustomed to requesting, and that may have an impact on budget and other things that we would need to all talk about at some point. With regard to, I think I read somewhere, and I'm not quite sure that, well, I think I read somewhere that if Fall 2 were to take place under the Northeast Conference scheme of things, there would be no conference championships or playoffs. Is that accurate?
So as of right now, the MIA there is no fall tournaments.
Right.
In a sense of, if not every team participates in a fall 1 scenario, I would assume you probably couldn't have a league champion, you know, just in the sense of, you know, you had teams that didn't participate. In a fall 2 scenario, you could probably have, you know, kind of like a league champion if everybody was participating at that point. You know, fall 1 sports would be kind of, for lack of a better term, glorified scrimmages, in the sense you're playing to play, but you're not playing for a league title, you're not playing for a tournament berth, because those don't exist. You know, you're playing games to play games, which, you know, from the amount of people out there, that's what they want to do, but there would not be, you know, with 6 or 7 teams going and 4 or 5 teams not, there wouldn't be that league title.
Sure. No, I understand that, but there would be an opportunity to compete, which I think is important.
Yes.
There would be an opportunity for, in a fall 1 and then a spring, assuming everything goes well, virus COVID-wise, there'd be an opportunity for athletes to perform publicly, where they can be viewed by scouts or colleges or institutions that may be interested in them as a student athlete at another level. And also, I think it gives student athletes an opportunity to heal. Kids that, you know, or student athletes that participate in fall sports might take track or some indoor track in the winter just to maintain some level of conditioning, but it's not an impact sport. We see some student athletes compete in 3 impact sports: fall, winter, and spring, but I think the majority are 2 impact sports, whether it be winter and spring or fall and spring. So I think the time to give bodies to heal is important as well. But before I go any further, I just wanted to raise some of those logistical points.
Sure.
In a general sense, and now open up to either Mr. Amico or Ms. Carpenter first, if that's okay. Yeah, Ms. Carpenter?
Thank you. I just had a question on the volleyball. When you mentioned possibly, did you say keeping it, that there's talks of keeping it to a fall 2?
Some communities have had that discussion because, you know, we're not opening, there's some schools that are opening full remote aren't allowing things into their building, and volleyball would be, you know, one of those sports.
Does there if that happens, is there any crossover or scheduling conflicts with, like, the basketball court because you use the same room?
Fall 2 would be a completely separate season, so the winter would have come to an end at that point.
It does.
Yes.
Okay, so there's
Yeah.
no issues on that.
Yeah, so winter season is from November 30th to February 21st or whatever that end date is, and then the fall two would start February 22nd. and
Okay,
run
that's
through
what I was
April
wondering,
26th.
that February timeframe. Okay, so they wouldn't. So the concern for some of the other schools is that they couldn't let the kids in the building because they're fully remote.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that's true for every, I
Right.
just know that that's been brought up by other athletic directors in other communities.
And I just wanted to clear up, I'm a little confused about, so football and cheer, there's no possibility of them being regular fall one?
No, they right now, they're considered an at-risk sport, a high at-risk sport, so the MIAA has pushed that off statewide to the fall two season.
Okay. That's all I have for right now. so.
On that, if I could, is that, football is the only sport right now that the MIAA has said has to go?
Correct.
Fall two?
Yes.
Football and cheerleading.
Football and cheer?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Miko, if I may, before we get to you, on that point, since we're discussing it, is there an opportunity to separate football and cheer? In other words, can cheer, if we wanted the cheer team to be present at field hockey games or soccer games, things that they historically don't attend or don't perform at, is that something? Is there any conversation about that?
There hasn't been any conversation, but cheer is also considered a higher risk sport in the
Right.
sense of, competitive cheer, in the sense of the closest of it, the tossing, the catching, it's more the contact of it. It's considered a higher risk sport.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Miko?
Great, thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Bua. Mr. Bua, thank you for being here. Was there any talk about the possibility of still having volleyball in the fall and just not admitting fans to the indoor field houses? I yield on that one.
No, so the conversation wasn't, we didn't have a sport-to-sport conversation, as Dr. Vidal pointed out. It was just kind of more, at the time of the discussion, there were 5 schools that wouldn't be able to play, and a 6th school that basically was told that where we can't play. And so that's what sparked the vote amongst the athletic directors. So there wasn't a specific conversation on any specific sports, but we did bring up, if sports do happen, what is the policy on fans? And I think we kind of left that up to a town-by-town decision.
Okay, great, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Vidala, for clearing that up on the athletic issue there. And I guess my belief is, if schools are open, then we should, athletics should be open. So, I know the NAC is working hard to hopefully getting this going, and if we can make this happen for the kids, this would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Mayor Betancourt?
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. And Mr. Bua, thank you for being here. I know there's been a lot of questions asked of you as over these last several weeks, and I sometimes get frustrated that I just feel like sometimes we don't get the information we need from, in this instance, the MIAA, and I think a lot of it comes down to cities and towns making these difficult decisions. And but thank you for all your work. It's been great. I mean, my thoughts and feelings, and I spoke certainly about this, and it's the same mindset I have now as when we voted on reopening of school to go to the hybrid, to offer the hybrid model, is that I feel that our kids, our students our adolescents need to be around other adolescents. And whether it's athletics, whether it's performing arts, theater, chess club, culture club, whatever the case may be, I think we have to try to find ways to make that work, because I think students need to be around their peers. Students need to be around those other students that share their passions and interests, and I think that's important for the whole student, everything that they go for to go to school. I've been increasingly concerned about the mental health aspect of our students, dealing with the restrictions that have been put in place and the difficulties that they've had over the last several months. We've all had, but looking at the school, here in the school committee, the focus certainly has been on the students. And I feel that having athletics, having performing arts, having those other clubs available is important for their mental health and the whole experience of being a student. And I just feel that if we can put together some sort of season in the fall for these sports, I think we're doing the right thing by our students. And, to me, it just doesn't make sense to have a fall 2 sports season for golf, cross country, soccer, field hockey. That doesn't make sense to me. They're going to miss out on a whole season because I just don't understand how it's going to work in March and how difficult it would be to have those seasons if we have a typical winter. And oftentimes we're having much worse than a typical winter, and it's brutal. It can be, particularly in March, it can be brutal. So I think to kind of push it off those sports, to me, it doesn't make sense. And I'd like to try to move forward and have the ability for our students to play. And I'd love to be able to, have as many schools as we can have some sort of schedule. I understand we're not going to have league titles. We're not going to have state tournaments. But to me, it's just about, as Mr. Hockman said, it's just about competition, playing games, being with people that share your interests, having other ways to express yourself, which has been very difficult for everybody, adults, students, but students in particular, the ways to express themselves and be a part of a group, be a part of a team, be with their peers, be with other adolescents that share their interests. To me, that's what this vote represents, and that's what I think we have to try as best we can to make that happen. So I'm fully in support of, I'll just say it, I'm fully in support of moving forward with a sports fall season. I'm fully in support of allowing those students that that have opted for a remote, and that's a family decision, which all of us respect. But those are our students, and they should be allowed to play sports as well. So not only the students that are doing the hybrid, but also the students that are doing the 100% remote at this point should all be able to play should they decide that and make that decision as a family and as a student. But that's my feeling as to what would be the votes that I would make tonight if need be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Carpenter?
Thank you. I just want to follow up on the mayor's sentiments. I've been thinking about it, and it's definitely something I'm in support of as well. A lot of the members here have already touched on certain, points that I think we all agree on. The mental health piece is really big. I think a lot of parents are starting to see the decline of their children's mental health, and getting back to normalcy is really important. Some of these kids are depending on recruiters coming. They need film. It depends on them getting into some colleges and some scholarships and those type of things. And, just the overall, the extracurricular, the clubs, those are just as important in my opinion. And if we can get them to play some sports, I think that would be in the best interest. I think that the subcommittee, hopefully we'll be reporting out at a regular school committee meeting with our recommendation. But I did just want to say publicly that I am in favor of it. I would like to see them play. It is important. And a lot of these kids have been playing and practicing all throughout the summer anyway, in some form or fashion. And clearly they must have been doing it well, because we haven't had big clusters of COVID coming from these teams. Because we all know that most of them do play on another team in the off seasons like that. So I am fully in support of it. Mr. Boer, I have faith in you that you can pull it together. We've talked a little bit, and I'm listening to you tonight. And I just want to make it known that I think that's something that we should definitely move forward with. Thank you.
So, yeah, Mr. Boer.
So my question would be just looking at transportation and potential transportation issues. And I know right now kids have to take buses to games. Would there be any thought of, for a year or, while we're kind of through this, kind of coming up with a policy that parents could take kids to try to alleviate some of the bus costs and stuff like that? Just a thought, that kind of popped into my head in the sense of, especially kind of some of the younger teams where parents go to the games anyways. Just, a thought on that end.
Yeah, no, thank you. I know what you're suggesting. I know when I coached the baseball team at the Higgins, parents who were unfamiliar with policy wanted to drive their student athletes to and from games. I think that's something that we have a little bit of time to work on.
Yep.
I think there are some larger issues, as you know, that we need to be cognizant of when it comes to the transportation of student athletes to school-sanctioned activities.
Correct.
I do have some more questions for you, and I'm glad to hear, as I suspected, that there would be a tremendous amount of support from committee members in terms of having our student athletes participate in sports, and I think that this also allows for some other activities to take place, particularly at Peabody High School. But I know in the MIAA scheme, spring sports, or I think it was the MIAA scheme, spring sports were pushed back to late April through the beginning of July. And is that something that, as we're talking tonight, that's readily adopted around conferences that are under MIAA jurisdiction?
Yeah, so the schedule of the fall one, the winter, the fall two, the spring, that's the schedule set by the MIA for those dates, start dates.
So if we take some action, and it sounds like we're going to, we're not going to impact the ability of football and cheer to occur in that window of fall two, February to April?
No.
Okay. And even though football and cheer are in that higher level 3 category, and there seems to be a greater concern and reluctance for those sports to occur in fall 1, would the football team and the cheer squad be able to practice or work out or do team type events? Are they precluded from that?
So the MIA has waived the out-of-season coaching rule for the year. So in a sense, yes, but I mean, football practice would not look like football practice. They still have to meet the guidelines, which is mostly at this point conditioning.
Right.
I've talked with Coach Betancourt about what that would look like in that sense. It'd be access to the weight room. It would be, that kind of stuff, outside conditioning. The one issue I think, as Mayor Betancourt said, we run into with fall two is fields. There's a very good chance we could be covered in, 1.5 feet of snow and not have access to, practice fields and stuff like that. And that's always the tough thing that hits with fall two.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that there's a tremendous value in the mental side of things, mental health side of things, even for teams to be together, whether it's in the weight room for a football team or, no contact drills on a football field or some scheme that can be developed. And it sounds like you and Coach Betancourt and other coaches up at the high school are already talking about that. So I'm excited to see that. I did intentionally make this a public meeting, broadcast on PATV as well as Facebook Live, and encouraged or invited participants to not only attend but speak. So I do want to turn this over at this juncture to what we will call public participation in the subcommittee. And we have 3 attendees. And if any of the attendees wish to speak in this meeting, please raise your hand so that we can recognize you. And I will pass you to Mr. Mitchell so that he can get you into the meeting. So the first attendee with a hand raised is Tammy Brunette.
Hello?
Hi, Ms. Brunette. Please just state your name and address.
Tammy Brunette, 32 Elmwood Circle.
And as I think you've participated in public participation before in general school committee meetings, we will adhere to our policy of not responding directly to anyone who speaks at public participation. But the floor is yours, and please say what you wish to speak about.
Thank you. I wanted to call in tonight because I did send a message to many of you earlier today. I just wanted to let a lot of the student body and parents in our community see the support that's out there for our students, and also to show respect to all of you to show our appreciation at how difficult this whole process has been. Today is just a really important day for a lot of the students in our school. Many of the athletes train year-round and they participate in multiple sports. Mid-March, when COVID hit all of us, it was challenging for everybody. But our student athletes, it was confusing emotionally and physically. They were unsure if their winter sports season was going to end properly. Some of them decided to move on and start to train for spring. Others quickly just found a plan of what was next. They found private training. They scurried to buy used workout equipment. They found independent programs to keep them busy. But basically, the sum of that is quitting wasn't an option for them. This is what they do. This is who they are. And they all wanted to find a way to keep it going. And I just feel like the current situation with the NEC conference, I appreciate the efforts that's there, and I'm happy to hear the comments tonight with the support of moving the sports back to fall 2020. It's a bit more realistic for our students to be able to play. And, academics at our school, we were all given the choice to go hybrid or remote. And I think it's really important that the students have that same choice of whether or not they're comfortable to play sports. I did send out and posted on social media a video that I made. I asked just generically online for photos of students playing their sport, and with the intention of trying to put that together. And I got so many photos, I had to find a special app to be able to include as many as I could. And so many of them were from people, students and parents that I've never even met. And I just, again, find it amazing the way that our city just pulls together during tough times and just everyone finds a common ground. I just hope that the dedication and the passion that our student athletes have and that our coaches have, will be a reflection on the vote tonight. And I thank all of you that stopped tonight outside of the school to say hello to our students, to thank them for their commitment to Peabody, and just the students there tonight being respectful and so positive. It just shows a great thing for our city. So I thank you all for listening, and Bulls up.
Thank you, Ms. Burnett. We do have another attendee who has their hand raised. If Mr. Mitchell can bring in M. Smith.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Matt Smith, and I live on Florence Road. I won't take a lot of time because many of the committee members already said what I had to say regarding mental health and weather. I just want to make one observation that if the fall 1 season can't happen and it goes to fall 2 and winter also cannot happen, that is also moved to fall 2. So you will have some scheduling issues around buses if both seasons are happening at the same time. But what I really came on to say is that I'm a parent of 3 kids at the high school. My oldest was just graduated and was a captain of a spring sport. And when the final decision was made to cancel the spring season, and talking to my son, he made a statement that really hit my wife and I pretty hard, which was that all he cared about was playing one more game with his teammates, one more time with his uniform on. So I don't really think it matters what the fall season schedule looks like, whether, we play Danvers 6 times, or, the teams are mixed and matched. I know, speaking in my household, they just want to play. And can't thank everyone enough for the support for potentially having the fall 1 season. Because I know in my house, the mental health is a real important thing, and sports is a big part of our household. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. If there are any other attendees that wish to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll resume the meeting. And on this issue of participating in Fall 1 sports, I would entertain a motion from a committee member.
I can make that motion. Do you want me to list each sport to be included in Fall 1 in the motion? Do you need that motion, Mr. Brewer or Mr. Vidala, Dr. Vidala?
So we don't need a motion to participate. We would need maybe a motion to participate for if there are sports, we may need a motion for the remote students to participate. Since we're going hybrid, we are able to participate as long as there are sports. So I think the question would be, is the committee in support of remote students to participate in athletics if Fall 1 happens? Because I think that as a committee and as a school, if Fall 1 is happening, we're all in support of Peabody playing, and it would not require a vote because we're hybrid. What would require a vote is the remote students participating in Fall 1.
Okay. And I don't have a problem with that. So I'll make a motion to approve.
If we can, hold on one second.
Sure.
Please. And I appreciate that, Dr. Vidala. I don't think that there's a legal obligation for this committee or this subcommittee to make a vote, but I think that there's a need for our community to hear
The public support of it?
the public support
Certainly.
and to not only this community, but the communities on the North Shore who are going to participate in sports, hopefully beginning in October. So, but I do agree that legally we need to take the second vote. Let's take them one at a time, if that's all right with you, Ms. Carpenter.
That's fine,
And
yep.
did you have anything to add, Dr. Vidala?
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to vote once for all students, remote and hybrid students, to participate, if you wanted to too.
Mayor Betancourt?
Thank you, and I just want to kind of reiterate what you talked about, Mr. Hockman. I think that's important that we make that vote as well and do two separately. Even if I guess it's symbolic in some sense, but I think it's an important vote to take. And then certainly the other vote regarding our remote students being a part of any plan, I think that has to be taken. But I think we should make a statement as a community.
Okay. So I'll make a motion for Peabody schools to participate in Fall 1 season sports. Is that how you want it framed? Is that good?
That's good.
Okay.
And Mr. Miko, you able to second that?
Second, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Roll call vote. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And if the mayor wishes to cast a vote, I'd be happy to give him the opportunity.
I better stick to just voting on the ties, but I would vote yes.
Let the record reflect.
I vote
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Dr. Vidala did bring up, and we touched upon this earlier in the meeting, we do have a legal obligation to cast a vote on whether or not students who either by themselves or their families have elected to participate in education wholly remotely, whether those students would be eligible to participate in Fall 1 sports. We can take them up, we'll probably take up winter sports and Fall 2 sports and spring sports as the academic year develops. So just on that subject, I would like to have a little bit of a conversation before we take a vote. And if I may, maybe to Dr. Vidala. So we in Peabody still have policies that relate to attendance and as well as behavior and conduct. Can you just give us a little overview as to what that looks like with remote students?
Sure, and so we've discussed a number of times that remote schooling will look different than it did in the spring. And one of the major pieces of that is attendance is taken and submitted to the Department of Education. So attendance counts, grading counts, so all of that will be part of the remote learning. And I think it's also important to think about the Wednesday being a remote day for everyone. So there will be students who are participating remotely. So whether they're participating remotely every day or they're participating remotely Wednesdays or a couple days a week, the attendance counts. And I think that, you know, just my opinion, and obviously I'll let this up to the committee, to me, allowing kids to participate in sports and taking attendance holds them accountable for participating in their education, to take it more seriously. You know, our student athletes have always been dedicated to their academics, and they are student athletes. And I think that, you know, the kids who are learning remotely are still enrolled at Peabody High School. They'll be taking attendance every day, and they can participate fully in that academic program as well as the extracurricular if it's the will of the committee. But I think that it will incentivize them to participate more fully in the academic realm if they need to do so in order to participate in their extracurriculars after school.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. And now, if any committee members had any questions on the subject. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Ms. Carpenter.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve students of all Peabody schools to be able to participate in Fall 1 sports. All remote.
Second.
We have a motion made by Ms. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Amico. We'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So the committee recommendations, which we can report out next Tuesday at our regular school committee meeting, will be to participate in Fall 1 sports and to allow all students, regardless of whether they are attending school remotely or in a hybrid model, to be able to participate in those fall sports, provided that they adhere to all other policies already in existence under the Peabody Public Schools. Is there anything anyone else wanted to address while we have Mr. Bua and Dr. Vidala here?
If I could, Mr. Hockman.
Mayor Betancourt?
I just wanted to say to Mr. Bua that, and I think all of us know this, that the athletic director job is one of the most difficult jobs in the city. And, you know, you're being pulled in 100 different directions, and I just want to let you know that I appreciate the hard work you put into this job. You're at all the games, you're very visible, which I think is terrific, and something we all look for in our athletic director. And there's a lot of things you do behind the scenes. Your office, Kathy Strange does a terrific job. So I just wanted to recognize the fact that you have a very difficult position, and you're doing a terrific job with it, and we all appreciate it. I think there's going to be a lot of work ahead of you, you know, trying to work this out, you know, with the schedules and with the transportation, and I'm imagining there's going to be a lot of other questions that this school committee and others are going to bring up. But I just want to let you know we appreciate your hard work and your team, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Bua. Before we do close, I do want to say that Principal Magno did have another engagement this evening. He and I communicated through Dr. Vidala on these subjects, and he would have been here had he not had a prior engagement. So I wanted to at least acknowledge the work that Principal Magno is doing as well publicly. And I want to thank Mr. Amico for participating. I know he's participating remotely today. I, as the chairman of this committee, appreciate you being here and the support that you've provided our students on a daily basis and our student athletes today. Thank you, and hope you have an easier evening the rest of the way. So with that, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn, made by Ms. Carpenter, and Mayor Betancourt will get you on the record. He seconded it. So thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.